Hello, and welcome to this episode of Mindset Mentoring for Athletes, Families, and Entrepreneurs. I'm your host, Coach Chuck. And on this show, we explore the mindset principles that empower athletes and families, coaches, and entrepreneurs to perform at higher levels while building character, resilience, and purpose in life. Today's episode focuses on one of the most important influences in an athlete's life: great coaching. A great coach does far more than teach skills. Great coaches shape mindset, character, and the habits that stay with athletes long after the final whistle or final out. Today, we'll be discussing what truly makes a great coach and how great coaching reinforces what I call the champion's mindset arch: the beliefs, identity, discipline, and character that shape every aspect, every piece of an athlete's life and their ability to succeed both on and off the field. After a quick break, we'll be joined by Maine Baseball Hall of Fame coach Matt Rogers to discuss his new book, The Recipe for Being a Great Coach. So stay tuned for that conversation. Parents today are carrying a weight that most generations never even had to name. Anxiety is rising, depression is rising, and teen suicide is now one of the leading causes of death amongst young people. And here's what really gets said out loud. Parents, you struggle too. You're trying to lead your family in a world that's changed faster than anyone prepares you for, and you love your kids deeply, yet sometimes wonder if what worked for you is enough for them. I'm Coach Chuck Barnhart, and I spent nearly 40 years as an educator and mindset mentor, and I've watched this shift up close. I've also lived it as a father of 4 children. My son Billy and I are launching a family mentorship because transformation doesn't happen in isolation. Teens don't need fixing. Families need leadership, language, and tools that bring them back together. This mentorship is designed for parents and teens walking the journey together, guided by experience, faith, and practical mindset training. And if you're part of the senior generation, a grandparent, a mentor, coach, or trusted voice, I want to ask something of you. Please consider sharing this with the families you know. Sometimes the invitation carries more weight when it comes from someone they trust. And somewhere out there is a family that needs to hear the message. This isn't for everyone, but for the right families, it changes everything. You can learn more by going to thechampionsmindsetmentorship.com. Welcome back. It's my pleasure to introduce today's guest, a coach whose career reflects the true meaning of leadership, humility, and service to the game. Matt Rogers grew up as the youngest of 7 children and learned early the values of teamwork, perseverance, and accountability. A graduate of Cheverus High School, Matt distinguished himself as a 3-sport athlete and then continued his athletic career at Bowdoin College, where he played both basketball and baseball. Following his playing career, Matt devoted himself to coaching, and over more than 25 years, he's coached thousands of games and mentored hundreds of athletes, building lifelong relationships with players and fellow coaches along the way. In recognition of his impact on the game, Matt was inducted into the Maine Baseball Hall of Fame in 2021. In his acceptance speech, he reflected not simply on the privilege of playing the game, but on the greater privilege of giving back to it through coaching. Matt has recently published a new book entitled The Recipe for Being a Great Coach. In it, he shares lessons learned from decades of experience and from many players and coaches who have helped shape his journey. The chapters read like a blueprint for great coaching. Genuinely care about each player, establishing trust, creating a winning culture, communicating properly, maintaining perspective, controlling controllables, and teaching life lessons through sport. Today, we'll explore those ideas and more, and how great coaching reinforces the mindset development that allows athletes to thrive in sports and, more importantly, in life. Welcome back to the show, Matt.
Thank you, Chuck. It's an honor to be back and humbling because I'm not sure I'm a great coach. I'm probably mediocre and striving to be decent, but you are a great coach. So we could reverse the roles and I could just be interviewing you if you want to do that.
Well, thank you, but I think I had that same issue. It was like, there's so much more I could do to be better. And as I was reading your book, you know, it helped me kind of reflect on my years of coaching too, going, yeah, I did that okay, but I could have been better there, So it is a lifelong journey, isn't it?
There
Always
is.
trying to get better. One of the things I'm always curious about is with all the experience and all, now, what was it that spurred the book coming out about now? Was it just time was right for you personally, or was there more like, no, coaches need this information more now than ever before? Or combination of
Yeah, no,
both.
thank you for that question. I've been asked how long did it take to write, and I was literally writing this in my head for the better part of 25 years. Um, I don't have a diary, but I per se, I actually have a Word document, and I'm a big collector of motivational sayings and quotes, and really, even if something happens, if I see good or bad or indifferent, but if something happens on the ball field and I see someone either achieve greatness or something that I wouldn't want to emulate, I might just open it up and put it in there. So I was collecting stuff for a long time. And then about 2 years ago, I was having coffee with a dear friend, Dave Ead, who local people know very well, a sports anchor at Fox, and we share all kinds of deep conversations and solve all the world's problems. And he finally said, you need to write this book or start a podcast because you got too much you're keeping in. Other people need to hear it. And so that was honestly what kind of got me on the official track to actually, okay, so I'm going to write this thing. And then he put me in touch with a publisher, and I sent off my first transcript. And I'll be honest with you, I was probably 50-50 at best if they'd want to pursue it, but they said they really loved the concept, loved the writing, and wanted to do it. So here we are.
And it's fantastic, and there is a lot of wisdom in there. And one of the things that it seems like, as I reading through the book too, right, reflecting back on coaches I had, coaches I coached with, and this whole movement now towards also travel teams and the diminishing influence of local community stuff. Also, I get the feeling that people are getting into coaching for the wrong reasons, and that's concerning. And your very first chapter, right, is all about what was the title of it? But basically, put the kids first, right? It's really make sure you have genuine care for them.
Hmm.
And I don't want to say that coaches don't, but I feel like I'm seeing more and more who are getting into it because they want to make sure their child has opportunities, that the best way to ensure that is they become the coach for their child, and then the others take kind of a back seat. Do you want to? That's kind of a loaded question, but you want to jump in on that one?
Yes, and that alone could be a book. Sincerely, you hit so many points right there. First of all, coaches that go into it, and I'm not going to speak negatively about coaches. I think most coaches have good intentions, but we all have a certain. We're human beings. We all have a certain amount of ego. I always talk about this. Everyone is born with a certain amount of greed and ego. And I think at the root of it, even if you go back to the beginning of the Bible, greed and ego were at the root of a lot of problems then, and they are today, whether it's business, politics, coaching, and it infiltrates into a lot of different arenas. But coaches that go into it for their own benefits, their own ego, and not put the kids first, I think are missing a great opportunity. But you talked about AAU also. We grew up, and there really wasn't AAU. There was a lot more of just meeting at the ball field or playing in the backyard, having buddies over. I was on a podcast with Timmy Eisenhart, Michael Hoffer, and we talked a lot about Riverton. I didn't even go to Riverton, but as a kid, me and a buddy down the street would get dropped off there every Saturday from 9 a.m. to 3 in the afternoon. Either his mom or my mom would go drop me off to a school we didn't even go to. And we'd play pickup basketball and we'd jump in the pool. We'd play anything there. And there was a gym monitor there, but pretty much we were making our own rules and settling our own disputes, calling our own fouls. And there's a big, huge lack of that in our country now. And part of that's because of AAU. And then when you talk about coaches that want to pave the way for their own kids, we all hear about helicopter parents. There's also a term called snowplow parents that, not only are they helicoptering, but if there's an issue, they're going to steamroll anyone or anything that's in their son or daughter's way. And that's not preparing their kids for life. Bill Finley, who's a dear friend and a great guy, who's an umpire, he ran the District 6 umpire in chief. And back in 2014, 12 years ago, it doesn't seem that long, but 12 years ago, he asked me to present to Little League groups, and I still do it. I do it every year to whoever really asks. It's usually 3 or 4 leagues in the area, and I go and I present to their coaches. And my presentation is titled "It's All About the Kids." And I go in and I understand that as I give my messages, it's not going to resonate with everybody. Everybody, some people might sit there and have their own agenda, and whatever I say or teach or do, they're going to say, he doesn't know what he's talking about. Maybe I don't, but they go back and they're going to do what they do. But my whole presentation is about, I understand in Little League, 99% of the coaches are there because their son or daughter is playing and they're volunteering to coach, which is a wonderful thing. What I try to encourage is don't just care about your kids, don't just care about your team, care about the other team, care about all the teams in your league, even younger kids in the league. Make sure you're using that coaching opportunity to teach life lessons for these kids to be good people, because the stats show that the majority of athletic careers run from about the age of 8 to 18. And then, as a parent, and frankly, if you're a good coach, you should be crossing your fingers that for the next 70 years, they're a good person. So you have that short window to really have a big impact on somebody if you can teach them life lessons and humility and character and all the things that you coach about in your job, which I applaud. If you can do that for a boy or a girl at those ages, it goes a long way.
Yeah, and sports obviously sports are not the only way, but it, the nature of sports are one of the best ways, tools of doing that, because in the nature of it, there's failure, there's setbacks, there's all those things that are great opportunities for life lessons. And I think baseball, of all the sports, is probably the best at doing that. I just was putting together some stuff for an article doing, and one of the things about baseball that's so unique about it is every kid gets a chance to step in that batter's box. And when they are, that spotlight is on them. And it's on them for an at bat or the pitcher, right? The spotlight is on that pitcher. And that's so unique. Like sports like basketball and soccer and things. And you're out on the court with other guys and the ball's moving around and you get the ball. Spotlight's on you for a moment, and then it goes off to somebody else, right? But boy, when you step in that batter's box, everything's on you. And that's kind of pressure is a great chance to teach so many things. We're both baseball guys, so that's one of the reasons I love baseball. But, uh, you know, all these chapters, and there's some good ones. Is there one that you think, one of these principles in there that the others kind of really feed off and build on? Is there a foundational one that you think would be the boy, if there was that one, just one of these that a coach had, that would really help tremendously? Or do you see them all kind of um, flowing together. Well, they've all flow. Is there
Yeah.
one that kind of everything
Yeah.
else? Yeah.
I like to think they all flow together, and there, as a, the title is the recipe, and I thought a lot about the title, and it's unique because usually if you go to Amazon and look for the book, you're going to find, if you type in the recipe, there's going to be all kinds of, and they're all based upon cooking, but it's the recipe for being a great coach, and they're all ingredients or skills that go into being a great coach. But if there was one, Chuck, I would say it's the last chapter, and that's where you build your own legacy. Because I've lived my life, whether as a human being, as a financial professional, or a coach, I have a small set of credos by which I live, and I don't waver from them. And they're very straightforward and simple. It's the golden rule, right? It's do others to unto others as you'd have done unto yourself. It's always tell the truth, and always to do for others. And the last chapter is about creating your own legacy. When we live, we're writing our own eulogy. And a lot of people, whether they mean it or not, or they joke and they say, when I die, I don't really care what people say. Well, I don't know if I truly believe that, and I know I don't feel that way. I do care about what people say for the benefit of my wife and my kids. I was blessed to have a mom and a dad who, to this day, even though they've both passed, remain my heroes because they were the most selfless, giving people I ever met, and they instilled so much in me that to this day, when I meet somebody and they say, "Oh, you're Ed's son or you're Joyce's son," I perk up and I can't wait to hear what they're going to say because I know they're going to say something positive. I want the same thing for my wife and kids when my time comes. And as a coach, you do create a legacy. And I've told people this, whether you coach for a year, 10 years, 30 years, whatever it is, when you're done as a coach, you're going to fall into one of three categories in your players' minds. And one of them is they won't remember you, which I think would be sad and a missed opportunity. So if they said, "Oh, Coach Matt, I don't remember him," that'd be sad to me because I missed an opportunity to have a positive impact. The other one, which would be worse, is, "Oh, Coach Matt, I couldn't stand him. He's the reason I quit baseball, basketball, football, soccer, whatever it was I coached." That would be heartbreaking. That would be a borderline tragedy to me. The last one is they perk up and they go, "Oh, Coach Matt, he was great. He was funny. Like he blah, 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 he made it fun." And those are the ones where down the road I might be in New York City in a busy sidewalk, and they might be on the other side of the street in a busy sidewalk, and they see me without me seeing them, and they cross the street. They take their life in their own hands and go play Frogger and get across the street in a busy street, and they find me and they come up with a big smile and a handshake and a hug and say, "Coach," and I give them an embrace right away, and that's what I strive for. Um, as a coach, as a dad, as a mentor, as a community leader, um, that's the opportunity, and that's really all of the things about communicating and building trust and caring and all that all goes, those are the ingredients that go into the cake that you're making.
I was going to ask you about the title of the book, Recipe, figuring it was deliberate and purposeful. So that kind of explains all that. And again, I agree wholeheartedly. I have a motto I make my own like calendar, planner, journal combination thing. And the motto at the top of that is, uh, I want to stand before God one day and hear him say, "Well done, my good and faithful servant." That is my mission, right? That if I can
Yeah.
hear him say that, then I know those other things will happen because I'm thinking more about other people than I am myself. And that's not always easy, you said earlier, right? We all have our little egos and all. But when you can shift, when begin to think, or you had mentioned a couple coaches there who would listen, right? To, oh, yeah, all right, let's try that. Or I think you said your daughter's coach who had a volleyball coach who had didn't realize the
Body
body
language.
language he was
Yeah.
presenting, but kind of went, "Oh,
And he was a
uh,
professional volleyball player. Like, you know, again, so there's so many things that go into being a coach. Like he knew the game, he could play the game as well, if not better than almost anybody. And he wasn't even aware of his body language. But no, you talked about God, and I write about it in the book. Each day, Chuck, you and I live this way, but at the end of every day, if we can look at the person in the mirror and the one upstairs and be like, I'm good. I did a good job today. And then go to bed and pray and hope you can do it the next day and the next day and the next day and continue to do it because you can't waver. Because as we know, reputations are built decade after decade, but they can be lost in a moment. So you're spot on that if we're living where we can be happy and proud of what we've done for others that day and then just repeat it, I think and hope St. Peter will let us right in when the time comes.
exactly, exactly." I have a symbolic image of the mindset of a champion arch. And so stone arch is a beautiful architectural structure, engineering structure. It's beautiful, but it's also very strong, right? We have arch bridges that are thousands of years old. And the foundation of that, metaphorically speaking, of my thing is a mindset of love, because from that, everything else rests. Right? And then I have the piers are faith and faithfulness that hold up the voussoirs or the stones of the arch, which are the relationships, your ability to connect family level, friendships, and all the things that go with that, the mind, body, the physical aspect stuff. Uh, and then the spirit of the champion is that keystone that holds everything together. But it all rests with that idea of love. And I often have people do a little thought experiment just to kind of prove the point. And if you begin to think of somebody who you would either work for, alongside of, or um, want working under you, do you want somebody who is selfless or selfish, easily
Right.
angered or slow to anger, hopeful or pessimistic? And you
Mm-hmm.
can go through that list, and nobody ever says, "Oh, I want somebody who's easily angered, who'll throw me under the
Right.
bus, who's impatient." Never, never.
Right.
And
Yeah.
say, well, all those other things are what we want to teach people to build. It's not always that easy, but um, hopefully a great coach can help develop that. Patience,
Yeah, who do you want to be
perseverance.
around, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you want to be around uplifting, positive people or negative drags, and what I coined and not I took it from a book is energy vampires, people that sap your energy. Yeah, we all want to be around the positive, and then if you say, well, that's who you want to be around, well, why don't you try to be that yourself, right?
So what you've got this book out there. You do a lot of speaking. What else do you think can be done structurally to help these organizations that I think of things like Babe Ruth and Little League and Pony League and whatever else, whether it's a private organization too, like a Blue Wave basketball or something,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
who relies so much on volunteers. What do you think we could do to help educate, teach? And again, I agree with you. I think most parents who volunteer to coach have the right intentions.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if they always have the right skills. And again, it's very easy to begin to think like you're doing this for your kid, right? That kind of mentality is lurking there in the background. So thoughts on how we can take this recipe you have and get it into the hands of all those chefs who are going to be coaches.
Yeah, you're right, and it is a challenge because I mentioned Little League before. Little League is remains the largest volunteer sports organization in the country. Even the umpires don't get paid for Little League games. So you're dealing with Little League, you're dealing with AAU organizations, and I know the Blue Wave, Maine Lightning, a lot of these organization leaders, and several of them have approached me about the book, which is a good sign because they want it done the right way. Um, I wrote in the book that I hope athletic directors will read it just as a maybe a blueprint for them when they're interviewing coaches, even at the high school level. Because you hit on it before. Why? I've always said, try to find out why someone's coaching. And then if someone didn't apply, why didn't they apply? Like, I would think you would be a great coach, but you're busy with your business and you want to be with your family. And those are really good reasons not to coach. Sometimes there's amazing reasons not to coach and there's bad reasons to coach. So find out, that should be a question. Why do you want to coach? And stop and make them answer it, because a lot of people might be like, geez, I didn't think you were going to ask me that. But to your point, I think the best way to kind of get it out is, I hate the please understand that the only perfect person, in my opinion, that's ever walked is Jesus. So there, and nobody is perfect, but when Jesus was trying to spread his message, he started small and he got a couple of followers and then eventually called them his disciples. And then those disciples went out and preached and spread it and spread it and spread it. It has to start small. And so we're starting small. I'm not mass marketing this book. It's really, I'm a humble guy from Portland, Maine. But the word's getting out there by those that are reading it, and some of the leagues are buying it, and some businesses have bought it for their their team leaders. I think the best way is just to kind of, if people do like it, recommend it. And if they know someone that's either an existing coach or a future coach, it doesn't even have to be a coach. It's the intention of the book is to try to help literally individually. If you're looking to be the best you, it might help. If you're a coach, there are 22 chapters that are skills and ingredients that go into being a great coach. If you're already a coach, read it. And if you check all 22 boxes, you should come away going, hey, well, at least I feel really good about myself because you checked all the boxes. Maybe you check 18 of them and you go, I could get better at these four. Maybe you check 16, maybe it's 11, maybe it's 5. I don't know. But it's intended to try to help anyone be their best. And if you're in a position as a leader, as a coach or a religious charity organization or a business leader, a parent, I even think athletes should read it. But it can help anyone in any capacity. But if you're in a situation where you're leading others, it should help you understand how you can really equip them mentally and physically to be their best and put them first ahead of you.
Yeah, there are several things you have in that book that are those life lessons. So it's not just about coaching. You're telling this in context of coaching, but
Mm-hmm.
it the applications that you just kind of alluded to carry over not just for the athlete, but for coaches as well. If they apply those in their business life or other things, uh, their whole whatever organization they're part of will do better. I mean, you put some things in there, kind of chuckle a little bit because I think you said one of the things you talked about with your, I think it was a basketball team, was next play, the next play.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And if you like ask Henry Westfall or any of these guys who it was always one pitch or one possession at a time. If it was
Yeah.
basketball, one
Yeah.
possession at a time. If it's baseball, it's
Next
one
bit.
pitch at a
Yeah.
time. And in
Yeah.
baseball, teams I coached, we kind of had a pretty good record of like you mentioned some of the teams you coached fell down big late in the game, but you still were coming back. Well, you're able to because the focus becomes just this pitch. That's all. Control the
Yeah.
controllables was the other thing, right? It's this moment. I need to be in control of this moment. I can't think beyond that one step at a time. But it plays outside of sports too.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, no, it's true. I mean, and in life, again, you mentioned earlier that there's so many sports are a great place to learn life lessons. And in life, I'd love to tell our players that don't worry when you get into life, everything's going to be fair and everything's going to, all your efforts are going to result in the perfect outcome. It's not the case. As a hitter, you can do everything right. You can you can hit the weight room and you can practice and you can breathe and positive mental attitude. You step in, you study the pitch, you have a good approach. You take a pitch that's not yours and then you get the pitch you want and you absolutely hammer it and you hit it 110 miles an hour. There are players out there and one of them catches it and you're 0 for 1. That was a success. That was a wild success and your batting average is 0. So when you go into life and you're working, things aren't always going to be fair and outcomes are not always going to reflect the effort and attitude that you put into it, but you just got to trust it, trust the process and keep going. Um, because when you become a worker or a spouse or a parent, the stakes are higher. You might think the stakes are high when you come up bases loaded, 2 outs in the bottom of the ninth, down 1. Honestly, at the end of the day, big deal. Whether you won or lost, yes, it's important. I'm competitive. I hate losing. I talk about the difference between wanting to win and hating to lose and things like that. But how we define success in sports and life is very important, and that's talked about as well. But sports are a great platform to teach and prepare for life.
Yeah, it just made me think of that other another acronym that you used in there, which were, uh, I think I, with your permission, I think I may start borrowing it too. But it was roots,
Absolutely.
right?
Roots. Yeah.
Respect for rules, officials, opponents, teammates, and self.
Wow. You get an A
So
plus. You
yeah,
nailed it.
well, you so acronyms are powerful, but it was it just it spoke to all those things that I was like, yeah, that was beautiful because that's the kind of thing I wanted to, and it made with the acronym makes it very easy to remember. And when you create that as part of that winning culture, which was one of your chapters, that's the kind of lesson that goes into life, right? Just carries on. So,
What
was
age do
that?
you think I started teaching roots? What I would ask somebody like when do you think you could start teaching that? At what age for a kid?
Uh, I was thinking about that early. I don't
Yeah,
see any reason why,
yeah.
they come into your first organized league, like,
D-ball.
yeah, like respect. You're gonna, you might change the language slightly because they're little, but like,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
and then it
No,
just builds it.
you're right. And a lot of parents and coaches sometimes don't give kids enough credit for what they're able to attain. Now, in T-ball, you're not going to teach the hit and run and how to hit behind a runner and all that stuff, but you can start teaching life lessons for sure. That's frankly, T-ball is really about socialization, and most cases the first time they're part of a team, and it's not about how far or hard they can hit the ball and if they can, make a diving play. That's all wonderful, but it's really about the socialization. And I started teaching roots at that age, and again, it wasn't a course that I was going to teach in one practice, and those 4 and 5 year olds were going to know it and recite it by heart. It was consistent, and there were a bunch of boys and girls that I coached over multiple seasons, and then by the time they're really old at 9, they knew this thing and they could recite. They could have gone into a school and taught it to kindergartners because they knew deeply what each one of them meant. And as I wrote about, then if they when we all slip sometimes, right? If one of them slips and violates one of those acronym, the roots, the rules, officials, opponents, teammates, self. I didn't have to stop. I didn't call a timeout, and I wasn't a yeller anyway, but I didn't have to yell. I just said, "Hey, Chuck, roots," and yeah, 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 I got you, done. And other coaches would be like, "He just said that to like an 8-year-old boy or an 8-year-old girl, and they know what that, and they change their behavior." You don't underestimate what you can teach kids.
Yeah.
As long as you sit them down and explain what it means. It's like a parent of their son or daughter's jumping off the coffee table, and I write about that too. Um, you can't just say, "Don't jump off the coffee table." Why? Because I said so. That may or may not stick. You say, "Well, first of all, mom and dad worked really hard to pay for that, and you might break it, and that's not respectful to us. Secondly, you could fall and get hurt." Really explain why. And then logically, probably they're going to stop doing it. So,
It just made me remember I interviewed my cousin for podcast a while back, and who's had a very successful business career and all. And subject kind of came around to parenting and all, and he talked about he and his wife, who also have four kids like myself, three boys and a daughter like myself. But it wasn't about rules; it was about principles, and they were trying to raise their kids under principles. And with that, you don't really need the rules because kids can go, oh yeah, if this is really kind of the end goal of mine, this behavior is not going to get me there, and that's
right.
kind of what this roots thing is. And the other thing is, I have a program, planting possibility is something I've just started rolling out. I'm really trying to do more with groups rather than just individuals. Want to get the message out to broader audiences, but planting possibility. So roots, right? The importance of roots plays right into that kind of metaphor.
You also talked about love and God before and faith. That's a foundation, and roots are the foundation of a tree, right? So it goes hand in hand with a lot of things that you're already writing about and talking about and teaching. So,
It's funny because when we were just talking about t-ball and this idea, I had a flashback to my own son in a little lesson because he's playing t-ball and I was a competitive guy, so my kids kind of were picking up competition at a pretty young age. And
mhm.
a little ground ball's hit. He picks it up and he runs all the way to first and got the person out. And I'm like, okay, Kenneth, come here. Like, you need to throw it to your teammate, right? You got to throw it to them. So next ball comes and he picks it up and he runs over at about 6 inches from the first baseman, then tosses it to him. And I'm like, all right, we're getting closer there. So it's like,
Progress.
good, but next time try throwing it from a little further away. But those little moments like that, kind of they be a little humorous too. But are those kind of
Yeah,
teaching
those are little
parts?
victories. I think T-ball is one of the most misunderstood and underappreciated activities. So many people, and I talk about this when I go present, is you shouldn't endure the years of T-ball. You should embrace them. And there's what you just have to do is think like a kid and make games within the game. It's not about, again, it's not about the really about the techniques of baseball. You're actually starting to begin to teach them how to field and throw and hit and the rules and don't pig pile on each other and all that. And it's easily done if you understand how much they're capable of comprehending, which is a lot. So
Yeah. There's one other chapter that and I'm kind of looking at the clock too, gonna wind things down a little bit, but uh, it's a to me it was a really big chapter because there's so much depth to this, and it really speaks to the heart of a whole lot of the work I do with people, and it was about identity, and there was talking about both team identity, organizations can have identity, individuals have identity, and this whole idea of being true to yourself, and one of the things that I think in this modern day world is we miss something there in that when we talk or when I talk about identity and true to yourself is it's those values and character traits that you want to have. You want to be part of you, not necessarily the ones that are already there. And the story I tell all the time, I probably said it in a whole bunch of these podcasts I do. It was a because it illustrates the point so beautifully. But it was a student I had met, Jimmy, and he wasn't in my program or anything. I was filling in for his teacher, but he was an eighth grader and he'd had all through middle school a behavior plan, 1-to-1. He was regularly getting kicked out of class. He wasn't a bully. He wasn't violent or anything. He was just annoying. He was very, very good at being annoying. So I'm expecting that, and within the first 5 minutes, I could. He starts up being annoying. He sees me. Oh, new person in the classroom, being annoying. I could just see the ed tech going through that mental checklist of all the things he's supposed to do. It's clear this is not going to work, so he's going to escort him out. And I got to go ask Jimmy. Like I just got to ask him. So I go out in the hall, follow him out, and like, Jimmy, why are you such a pain in the butt to everybody? He looked right at me, no hesitation, because that's what I am. Right? So his identity had become that label. That label was changeable, but
Mhm.
by the time that label had become his identity, there's a whole lot of work that would have needed to be done. But the behavior plan was treating the symptoms, not the root cause. The root cause was that identity.
Yeah.
So I I find that part of what our job as coaches and parents and stuff is to try to be aware of that. Like, what are you hearing your athletes say? Like, oh, I'm not good in the clutch. Oh, you know, I, I don't, I can't really control that fastball, or what did it, what that label is. Do you, do you want to speak to that for a moment on how, as a coach, some of those underlying identity types of things you were trying to form as a team, but that also meant you're trying to help the players form that themselves.
Yeah, it's a lot of things. First of all, I think it's got to be what the team and the players want for their identity. We could walk in as a coach and say, "This is what we're going to be. We're going to do blah 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 blah," and that's okay. I mean, as long as they're good things. But if it's something that say a coach came in and said, I want our bench to be loud and yelling the whole game. If that's out of the player's character, you're forcing them to do something they're not comfortable being. And I don't personally don't like that. So one of the things we do at Bowdoin, as an example, is we meet with our teams because every year the team changes, right? Got kids graduate, you got new freshmen in, and this is even at the D3 level. If you go up to D1, now you're dealing with transfer portal, and the turnover of a roster is now about 70% a year. But we don't go in and dictate. We certainly want. We're going to say we're going to play hard. We're never going to talk to an umpire negatively. Like we do have principles, and you mentioned a good distinction with rules and principles. We have principles. We don't just say these are our rules. Principles are for uh, champions to follow and to adhere to. But as far as identity, we talk to them. We say, what do you individually and then collectively as a team want people to say and think about us? And it's an open forum. We'll get a chalkboard out, and people will say, oh, we want them to know our offense is relentless. Like we're just gonna 1 through 9, and even the guys off the bench are gonna be rude. Our pitchers are gonna compete and throw strikes, or we're gonna run. We're just gonna be hard to play against. We're gonna be aggressive. We're never gonna get down. All these, but it has to come from them, and then you can literally write it, and you could laminate it, you can give it back to them and say, this is what you all want to be. Now you put an action plan in place. I just talked to someone yesterday about an action plan. You get long-term goals, short-term, and then an action plan. So if they say we want other teams to think we play really hard, okay, what does that mean? What does it look like and to you? And then they talk as soon as the ball's hit it, where it's going to be a hard 90 to first base, whether I hit a pop up or hit it off my knuckle to the pitcher. I'm running hard, or we're going to run on the field hard, run off the field fast. we're never going to give up. We could be down 11-0 in the first inning, and our mentality is not going to be, oh, we're down 11-0. It's going to be, oh, the best time to be down 11 is in the first inning. This is great. Let's go and win an inning, win a pitch. So creating the identity first has to come from the teams for it to be authentic. And you have to have an action plan. You can't just say, oh, I want to be the best player. Well, what goes into that and what's that look like? And then let's put it in action. And then lastly is actions speak a lot louder than words. And I talk about that too. You as a coach, as a player, as a parent, as a business leader, you can say all you want, but if you don't exemplify that every single day, your credibility is lost. So it has to come from the team. It has to be done daily. You have to have an action plan, and you've got to be dogmatic at following through. And the coach should be a leader by example as well.
Yeah. Yeah. They pick up so much modeling, right? I've got this background on advanced behavioral modeling, and so much of what they pick up from coaches, educators in the classroom is that nonverbal and oftentimes unconscious, like that coach that your daughter played for, right? Wasn't even aware of it, but those nonverbal cues that were shaping the emotionality and the identity of the team without even being aware of it. And so having that input of the team is at 100% right on, and then the coaches kind of helping then foster that and work with that. I've actually been working to build a relationship with somebody, and we were texting back and forth, and he said, "Yeah, I definitely want to do this," and things have fallen through. But after 2 years at the same minor league level, I noticed in looking at some of the stats was over those, so it's not a small sample anymore, but with two outs and nobody on base, if I remember correctly now, I'd have to go double check for sure. But with two outs and I think with nobody on base, his batting average was statistically significantly lower than other situations. So I'm going, all right, what's going on there in that situation? Why his batting average is that much lower over 2 years now than any other situation? And I'm sure that there's something unconscious he's not even aware of that is going on that makes that a different situation. So if we can fix that, all of a sudden, instead of being a 220 hitter, he's a 250, 260 hitter. That's a game changer for somebody who's down in Class A ball, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's those sort of subtle, unconscious identity type things that can make all the difference. And sometimes coaches can see that, and there can be a little pattern in it, like what you did with Mike Jones, just saying, all right, if I leave him in, he's not going to be able to be in that success loop that's so important. Emotionally, he'll probably beat himself up even more, all those kind of things. I think I better make a change. Seeing that, so then you can do whatever you did on the side so he's ready for the next game. That's that kind of thing we're talking about as a coach that you can do to interrupt the negative pattern, turn it around, and then make it turn into a positive. And
Yeah, positive thinking is huge. The old saying is, if you believe you're going to fail, only one thing can happen. If you believe you can succeed, anything can happen.
yeah,
So positive mental attitude is huge. If you have it, it's empowering. And if you don't, it's debilitating. So
yeah, absolutely. Well, Matt, I looking at my clock and seeing that time's kind of running out. As always, I love the conversation with you. Really appreciate all that you do for kids and sports and your clients and everything else. So it was a pleasure. And if people want to get your book, is Tower Publishing, is it also on Amazon too, or?
it is. Yeah, yeah. It's on Amazon. And if you want to support local, the local publisher is Tower Publishing. It's www.towerpublishing.com. Or if you're nearby me, shoot me an email or give me a call, send me a text, and we'll arrange a personal delivery. But yeah, it's available. And I'd love it if you do like the book or any feedback, you can leave a review. You don't have to buy from Amazon. If you bought it from me or Tower, you can leave a review on Amazon. You just go into Amazon, type the title of the book, and if you scroll about 90% down, it says leave a review, and you can leave a review there. That's helpful too. But if we can, the book was sincerely written to try to help others. So if it can be passed around and people use it as a handbook, it's an easy read. It's a quick read. It's one that you could kind of put on your desk or your bedside table and pick it up and read for 5 minutes. The chapters are short because as a reader myself, I like to finish a chapter. I always joke, we've all been there. We're reading a book and we've been reading for 20 minutes and really want to finish the chapter. And then you start going, how many more pages? I got 25 more pages before I finish a chapter. My chapters are by design about 5 pages. So it's a quick hit, a lot of pictures in there too. But yeah, so you can get it on Amazon, Tower, or reach out to me. And I always appreciate the time, Chuck. We always get into this because we have such a good time. We start chatting, and it feels like we've been here 10 minutes, and we've been here for an hour. So,
Absolutely. And I will attest, I love the short chapters too, because just like you, it's like those those books that have really long chapters. It's like, oh man, I don't know if I have time to finish this. I want to get to bed or what have you.
we
So,
all like
uh,
accomplishments, and if you finish a chapter, you're like, "Hey, I did something today," but you're like, "All right, I got to
absolutely,
get through
check
this
that
thing."
box off.
Right?
All right. Well, thank you, Matt, and I will put that link to Tower Publishing in the description of this, and of course, we can guide people to Amazon as well. But uh, thank you.
I want
Yeah.
you do.
Yeah. Go ahead. Do
I want to
what's
thank you for all that you do for so many because, again, at the end of the day, we're both parents. When kids' heads hit the pillow at night, we want them to feel good about themselves. And the world's challenging on so many levels, and in many ways, I think it's harder on kids now than it was when we were little. So what you're doing is invaluable as well. So I consider myself a humble disciple of yours, and I spread your word. So the more that people can follow you and understand what you do and hire you to help them, the better. So thank you again for all you're doing for others.
Thank you for those words. Much appreciated. Again, Matt and I have many conversations all the time. It's been a pleasure for me to have our paths cross through youth sports originally, and appreciate all that he's done. And as always, I encourage all of you, my son Billy and I have begun rolling out this mentorship idea because at that level, and the idea of mentorship is much more about a longer term relationship. And there's so much experiences that I've had in training and stuff that I absolutely know can really help the right families um, grow and become much closer on so many levels and make some really important shifts in their own mindset. And I kind of talk a lot about laying the groundwork to build the mindset of a champion. And that's a whole lot of what some of my work has been, is about clearing out all those obstacles that kind of can get in the way of building that. The mentorship is not just about that, is then taking you through a whole guided process of actually building that mindset of a champion. So if you would be interested to know anybody who might be interested in that opportunity, you can go to the championsmindsetmentorship.com. That's the championsmindsetmentorship.com. And until the next time, I hope you all go out and live life to the fullest.